Welcome to another interview as part of Connect Together. And my guest today, I'd like to call him the Disability Foundation's man behind the camera. He is a man of many talents, and he has been involved for a number of years with the Disability Foundation and its affiliated societies in many capacities. Hello, Caspar.
Hi, Eric. How are you doing?
I'm good. And I always
Good.
think by now everybody must know my name and get tired of the introductions. But Caspar is a comic fan, so when I say this reference, he will get it. Stan Lee always said that when you write a comic book, you have to write it as if somebody's never read a comic before. So for those who are joining us for the very first time, my name is Eric Mollendijk, and I am the National Coordinator for the Tetra Society. And I am interviewing his full name. You've heard his name is Caspar, and his full name is Caspar Ryan. Now, we should say that the spelling of your name is very unique. It's not Caspar like the ghost, but it's Caspar. So around our office, you used to be called Caspar, right?
That's right.
And
Very fondly.
yes, very fondly. And the uniqueness of your name, you were named more because of the nautical background, right?
Um, you know what? I've heard a few different things. I think my family's a little bit not on the same page about it, but the one that I like to follow through with is the wise man from the Bible.
Okay.
It's never named actually in the Bible, but there's some theories that one of them was named Caspar, and he's the one that brought treasure. So my name translates to treasure, and I like to go with that story.
Well, I think your name and the spelling suits you because you're a creative guy, and I first met you and got to experience your creativity. We were talking about this. I have known you, Caspar, since 2006, and back then the Disability Foundation office was at the Plaza of Nations. For those who don't know, our office at the time was very near this nice kind of walking area called the Seawall in Vancouver. And Caspar and I used to go for walks at lunch, and I would always have to pace out my chair because he'd be like, "Dude, I'm chasing after you." But you were actually a summer student with us for 3 summers,
Right.
2006, 7, 8, and you would help fundraise and write proposals, and that's how you and I got to know one another. And over 3 summers, I got to know you and know that you like to write and you're creative and things like that. So I think that's one of my questions: is how did your creativity? How did it start? How did you get attached to writing, or how did you discover the power of having a creative outlet?
You know, the very origin of it is kind of unknown to me because it came from such a young age. I remember one of my first memories is in kindergarten, um, taking my drawing book. We all had these books with completely white blank pages that we were meant to draw in. And I remember I would take it and I would write and I would just tell stories in it. And the teacher would look at it and say, "You're not getting it." But I think I was. I think I was getting it at just a different level. And I was just always more interested in telling stories about just whatever was in my head, about people, characters. Um, and so it's been with me forever. When the first thing I did on a computer was I learned how to word process using a program called Q&A. And I used to have hundreds of little things that I'd written. So that's me.
Well, and one of the things that you told me that I was impressed with is, and again, this is another thing that you and I have in common. You like comics and you like Star Wars, and I remember you actually wrote to, was it George Lucas or somebody involved in film, and you asked for copies of movies like Star Wars movies. You wrote letters so that you and your little brother could watch them together. And I believe what you told me is you wrote such a passionate letter, you ended up getting free movies back.
Yeah, so I'm gonna be a super nerd here with you and just say it was Star Trek and not
Well,
Star
see,
Wars.
that's okay. We fully embrace this the super nerdum here, and you know, I lots of people point out to me because I have my certain genres, and I'm going to be honest, and please forgive me. Star Trek and Star Wars are not necessarily my genre, but I do know the difference. So please nerd it up, and so you were writing about Star Trek, okay?
Yes, I had the VHS cassettes when I was very young, and I ran them so many times that they actually started coming apart. Like the picture quality reduced. Back with VHS tapes, you have these moving parts, like the tape inside would start coming out, and I'd have to wind them myself, kind of thing. So I wrote to Paramount, to the Star Trek people, and I said, this is something that I enjoy watching with my younger brother. You know, it got me. Used to watch it in hospital when I was very sick, um, and it got me an opportunity to connect with them. And they ended up sending me the whole set on DVD to refresh my my collection. It was a wonderful gift, and I was very blessed to make that connection.
Well, and they don't do that for everybody, so that should let everybody know what at a very young age you knew how to tell a story, and of course you were kind of telling your own story. So you know, you can talk about it as much as you want. You have overcome challenges throughout your life. You are a cancer survivor, and from some of the surgeries, there was, you know, you deal with mobility challenges, kind of joint restrictions, fine motor skill restrictions. But where I'm going with that is you've been able to overcome that and adapt, and you've pursued your dream of being a videographer.
That's right. Um, so my disability is what they call an sort of an invisible disability. It's not um, super obvious upon first meeting me, but it's something that really that I struggle with, and which limits my mobility. As you said, I have contractures in every single one of my joints, which means they don't straighten or bend completely. And this creates difficulty walking. It creates difficulty using my hands. Um, so there's a lot I have to deal with. But or, organizations like Tetra give give assistance in ways that make life easier. And so I was really fortunate to come across the Disability Foundation when at a time when I was, just starting out in life as a student, and and getting the help that I needed.
And again, as we mentioned, you were a summer student, so during your time, you were helping bring money into the foundation and writing proposals. So you would spend your day writing and telling stories that you do and talking about our programs. And I would say, you know, you can get a device for yourself. And eventually, with some coaxing, I'm glad to say that you did, and you've gotten to meet some of our great volunteers. And I know one of them in particular, David Graham, you've worked with a number of times. And as your career developed and things, he even made some adaptations for you so you could carry your videographer equipment easier.
Yes, David Graham. What a wonderful human being he is. He's such a talented, creative, thoughtful man. He built for me a cart, a fully adapted cart, which allowed me to carry all the different kinds of things that I needed. It was completely adjustable. It could turn into a table so that I was able to open my boxes and my crates and stuff, and work with my equipment on a surface that's not ground levels, which I can't reach. So um, yeah, I believe it won a Gizmo award. This little cart that I
It,
was
it did.
wonderfully given, but
It did. It did. It did win a Gizmo award. So the Gizmo awards are. It was chosen by our other volunteers, and we have different categories. And it won in the Quality of Life Award because it helped you be able to get out there and do your job, um, being less tired. And kind of this follows along the path of your career. You were writing proposals 3 straight summers for Tetra, and then we got to know enough about you that you said, I have a camera. I like telling stories. I want to be a videographer. Now, kind of your background, are you self-taught? Did you take courses? What's one of the first videographer projects that you did? What did you make movies as a kid with your family? How did you really develop those skills?
so um, I did I did study in university film, but for a very short time. I transitioned into communications ultimately. So I don't have any real formal uh, education in it. It's something that I learned by doing. Um, and I can search my brain, and I think the very moment when I realized I loved video and I loved editing was back in high school, at the very end of high school. One of my dearest friends was having a really tough time. His family was really hard on him about his grades. He was struggling with relationships. He was having a hard time. So what I did was I made a video for him, and the video doesn't include him at all. There are no pictures of him. There's nothing of him in the video, but it's all other people talking about him, creating this picture of who he is, and what he's like, and the memories that people have of him. And it was such a beautiful thing, when he saw it, just seeing the emotion of it, that I had this power. I found that I had this power through video, through editing, to bring people joy, to the point where he had tears in his eyes. And I had so much fun creating it, going out and sitting down with people and then creating pieces from the whole narrative that came together into a really fun, dynamic way. Um, and after that, I was like, this is the greatest thing ever. So I just kept looking and looking and trying to find things. And sure enough, the Vancouver Adapted Music Society, part of the Disability Foundation, came knocking at my door and said, come help us. So I did.
Is that the first society that you made videos for at the foundation?
Yes, that was the very first one. Yeah.
So what was the video with VAMS? What did they ask you to do?
It was a CD launch, a compilation CD with some of the best work from different artists through the years, and some highlights of the musical creations. And it was a launch party. So I went to the launch party, and I did sort of an event video for that.
And over the years, you've done weddings and things. And then once you did VAMS, now you've already touched on Gizmo Awards. These are awards that we used to have. We've now changed that to Tetra Nation, who we just celebrated a few weeks before, kind of a virtual campaign. But back in the day, we used to have these awards every other year, and we would one of the things that we want to do and why we do these interviews is to tell stories. And so at the Gizmo Awards, you want to tell stories of the volunteers and the winning projects. And if you've at all been on YouTube and seen Tetra videos, the chances are that if they are from 2010 on, Caspar's the man behind the camera and sometimes in front of the camera that's captured that story. As you said, if you come across YouTube and you hear the video of the adapted videographer equipment that won an award, one that definitely sticks out to me is you did a project for Tetra on a modified crib that last I checked, I think had close to 25,000 views. So, and I can't tell you how many times I've used videos that you've made. These are 2-minute videos, and the videos that start out with Tetra Society and kind of the moving logo and stuff. Caspar was the videographer on that. And you and I would always talk about, because I would lay out kind of the shoot and things that we needed and the story that we wanted to tell. And to get a condense a 2-minute video, try and give people an idea of the work that goes into that.
Well, the trick to it, the trick to getting 2 minutes is to have a concept of the story you want to tell, right? And the story I always tell with Tetra is, what is the challenge, what is the solution, and what is the outcome? And that's how I do it. So as long as I hit on those 3 points in that kind of sequence, the rest of it is kind of gravy. So I want to the first thing I do is I go out to the client who has the device, and I sit down with them. I go through their story. I talk to them about their lives, about their challenges, and all on video. I bring my cameras, my lights. Using my cart, I can carry all this equipment. And we go through it. I use the microphones and everything, get good sounds. Good sound is important. And then I take it home and I edit. And I always edit the night that I shoot. I'm crazy that way. I love to, because everything I've shot is in my head and it's all working together in my head. And I can remember exactly a beat. And I can remember exactly where little pieces here and there where that I really found were gold. And then I just sit down and without taking a break, without resting, I go through the editing, and then I have sort of a rough cut. And from there, I build from it. I clean it up. I do the color matching and things like that. And it's a process that's been refined heavily over the years. I've been doing it for many years now.
Okay, and I know, like, that's the magic, the editing, right? Because you might shoot for an hour and a half to 2 hours and take breaks. And has there ever been a time like those 3 points with Tetra? That sounds perfect, because that's really the process. There's a challenge, the volunteer comes up with a solution, and what was the outcome after? So that's, that beautifully kind of outlines the objective of every request that becomes a completed project. But when you go to capture these stories, you have an outline. And how many times on a shoot, during the shoot, has the person you're filming, your subject, I guess the term is, told you a story and you thought you were going to capture something and you ended up capturing something else? And you thought to yourself, that might not have been what I was expecting to capture, but it was still a great story.
Yeah, that happens all the time. I think it happens a lot with I mean, with the Gizmo Awards, things are pretty structured. You have a really good system there that leads me into it. The shoots are really good and clean, and then I get into my post-production, putting it all together. That stuff goes pretty well. But when you get into weddings and a dumpling ceremony comes up in the middle of the wedding and you didn't know that it was part of the night, then those things gets really exciting, because you've got to use your instinct to capture it just the right way, and be engaged with it, and not miss anything. And that's definitely, in some video productions, you have to really be ready, always ready, and the more experience you have, the better you are at catching those things, because back in the day there were things I missed.
So there you go. Being a good videographer is like anything else. Practice, practice, practice. And you've gotten yourself to a point where you've done some You know, you've been the videographer for some major events, as you said, not just weddings, but sorry, what was it, Miss World or Miss International Vancouver?
Yeah, I've done a few. There's some pageant work. I have a lot of fun doing pageants because they embed me in the um, pageant week with all the young women, and I go on the tour bus with them around BC, and it's super fun. And I do a lot of different ones. I do beauties of 5 continents, which is the current one. I did Mr. Global International. I did
So the
Miss
Mr.
World
Global,
Canada.
the Global International, is that men?
That's men, yes,
Yeah.
Mr. Global International, yeah.
Oh, okay. So there you go. Your lens will catch any gender, anyone. So,
Yeah,
and
it's
how do you get?
part of it is just this idea that they have that they can change the world
Yeah.
by being super pretty and super energetic. And that's male or female, they all have that concept around them. And I love to submerge myself in that, to be around people who actually are ready and believe that the world can be better.
Well, we definitely need to keep believing that. Um, Everybody should is make the world better with the skills that you have. Now, the Miss World Canada, that's the one I was thinking of. You've done that a number of years. So again, how do you become a videographer, and how did you get these opportunities? How did Miss World Canada or um, these opportunities? Did you search them out? How did these job opportunities come your way?
Okay, so for Mr. Global, I'll say this one first because it's super quick. Mr. Global International was a Mr. World Canada winner who pulled me onto the team because he felt like I did good work that he saw, and he was super excited to have me involved. So that's how I made that transition. But how do I get into Miss World Canada? What actually happened was one of the young women just finished at Blanche McDonald. She was ready to start working, get into the world. She was going to go to this pageant, and she contacted me to help her make an individual video um, about beauty with a purpose, which is the whole concept of Miss World Canada, that there's a goal, there's something you want to change, there's something you want to do in the world. And so she came to me and I made a video for her. And what happened was when they saw this video, it blew them away. All the other videos, they were like, these are nice little videos made by very, you know, college level, high school, just out of high school level young women. But this one was like, who made this video? And they actually came looking for me because they wanted to see who had made this video. And they said, you're now making videos for us.
For all the contestants.
Yeah.
So, well, see, that's a great example. Like, you meet one person and you never know where it may lead. And then another one that I found fascinating is you got a free trip, was it to Indonesia, to do a documentary on octopus?
Yeah. Yeah, you know, I like an adventure. So
Yeah.
when I see that there's an opportunity, that there's like a new nature show being filmed where you basically the concept was that you spend time just living with the animal. It's not like one of these it wasn't like one of these nature shows where you see the life cycle. They're born and they have conflicts and then they die. It was literally you sit there and watch it graze, an animal graze, or watch an animal swim, and just see how it goes day to day. A very, very simple, very almost soothing kind of concept. So when I found it, I was like, that just blows my mind. So I did everything I could to be part of it. And I think that's part of what makes me happy, is just going for things and not being afraid, and um, saying yes.
Well, and definitely, I mean, I'd be remiss if I didn't touch on, so that leads me into my next question to you is you've definitely fully lived that not being afraid, because now not only are you not behind the camera and making documentaries or making movies for other people, but you've actually been a performer and in a number of stage productions with Real Wheels, which is very well known in the disabled community and gives disabled and artists a chance, a creative outlet to be on stage. And you're now an actor at times with them and on stage and telling your story in that way in front of the camera. So, how have you found those experiences, and kind of describe the difference to directing someone and then being the one that has to be directed?
Oh yeah. Well, theater in general is very different from film. They're completely different. I disagree with anyone who thinks they're the same. But um, Real Wheels is a wonderful organization. I want to just give a shout out to Rena Cohen, who's been the mastermind behind it for so many years, and just been such a great mentor to me, and given me so many opportunities endlessly. Um, the difference when I stepped out from behind the camera, it was it was huge. Like, it was so uncomfortable at first, but when you are surrounded by people who have faith in you and who trust you and give you opportunities to make work that means something to you and is powerful to others. And also, I'm a big believer in humor, in making people laugh. My very highlight with Real Wheels was doing the comedy show, Comedy on Wheels, and just being in front of an audience, making them laugh and just scream with joy at uh, at my story. And so, getting up on stage, it's a super different feeling. There's a lot that you receive from the audience. Um, as an editor and as a director, there's no audience for most of it. You kind of get the audience in the end. Um, but with performance, there's always people looking and always people there feeling what you're saying. So it's a very immediate reward.
Well, that, people always say, how can you have the bravery to get up on stage and perform? And anybody who loves performing will say, well, it's an addicting feeling, as you just described, to interact with an audience and know that you're connecting with them in real time. And Caspar, I remember when we first met, you always used to ask me lots of questions. And I have to admit, for a while there, I thought, man, you're a little bit nosy. And then you said, well, I just want to understand. I want to get the picture. And I've come to really appreciate your curiosity and realize that you like to hear other people's stories. You like to tell stories. And I think in your own words once, you say you like to add a little bit of color to the world. So I thank you very much today for making the time and to continue on your creative journey. And I know that you'll continue to color the world and help others to do so. So thank you so much.
Well, thank you very much, Eric. It's been a pleasure coming on and talking to you. Thank you for taking me back.
And I'll just point out to those who are watching, again, on the Disability Foundation YouTube channel, you can see the work of Caspar Ryan. And before we sign off, if people did want to see more of the work that you do you have a Facebook page if they wanted to see, besides the Disability Foundation's channel, some of the stuff that you've done? How could they do that?
Yeah, absolutely. All the different disability foundations, societies will have my work. been a long time with you. And so going on to the Disability Facebook page, going on to the different social medias with the Disability Foundation, Tetra, all those, you'll find it. You can also find some of my stuff on the Real Wheels social media. And then there's the official Caspar Ryan Film. Without an S, some people say films. It's not films, it's Caspar Ryan Film on Facebook. You check me out there. You can see big things, small things behind the camera, in front of the camera, and enjoy your day.
Well, there you go. So thank you very much to the Disability Foundation's man behind the camera, Caspar Ryan, and again, that was Caspar Ryan Film, and you will be able to find out what he's created. Thanks so much, Caspar, and thanks for all those who've tuned in for another segment on Connect Together. Have a great
Thank you.
day. Bye-bye.